it's Reagan, and today I'm here to bring you my June wrap-up. Now for the month of June. June was a big month for me. I started my internship, I started getting really busy because I'm now working 40 hours a week, which is a new experience for me, but I still managed to read 5 books. 2 of those 5 books are also like very long. So I would say overall this was a success. But let's just go ahead and get started with the books I read. The first 2 books I read this month were part of the same series are the 2 longest books I read this month. The first being The Black Prism by Brent Weeks, and the second being The Blinding Knife by Brent Weeks. Clearly I've been talking about these already a lot on my channel. I loved them both, but you know, let's get into it. The Black Prism by Brent Weeks is a high fantasy series following a variety of characters. You have multi-POVs in this. POVs. The thing that really hooked me about this series though initially was the magic system. It's a really interesting magic system because it's based on the spectrum of light, and basically magic wielders in this society can like harness different colors of the light spectrum, and the more colors you can harness, the more powerful you are. And one of the characters we follow is the Prism, who can harness all power or all colors. The interesting thing about this magic system, however, is that the more magic you use, the more harm done to the user. Basically, magic users don't live very long because the magic itself is kind of poison to them. This story is amazing. It's plot driven for sure. The characters are also really great. It's just so action-packed and such a quick read, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat because there's just so many crazy things that happen in this. I loved this book and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. Would highly recommend. So obviously after I finished the first one and how it left off, I had to immediately move on to the second one, The Blinding Knife. This one had so many of the same strengths of the first one. I love the characters, I love the magic, but an element in this book that I just am a sucker for that was present, there was a school setting, which I love to read about training in school in any capacity, and this had that, and I freaking loved that element. And again, like, there's some character arcs that happen. Our characters are growing up or just changing in themselves and just becoming more complex, and I live for it, okay? And I also gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. I love this series. This is definitely one of my favorite series right now. I'm dying to read book 3. Book 4 comes out in October. Like, I'm in a committed relationships with this series. It's so good. After that, I fancied to pick up some YA, so I picked up Demigods and Monsters by Ray Wagner. This was sent to me for review by the author herself, and I've also done a full video review, which I will link down below. This is the second book to the Curse of the Sphinx series, which I read in February, and I also really enjoyed and also have a full review on. But this was just a continuation of that Greek mythology YA angsty series, and I thought this book was even better than the first one. This story experienced some really fantastic character development. We were introduced to new characters that kind of fleshed out the world a bit more, and most importantly, again, as I mentioned in my last review, it had a school/training element, which is my weakness. I just love reading about that, and I will always like it. And if you didn't know, the first novel to this series, The Curse of the Sphinx, follows our main character who's grown up always on the run with her mother until a tragic event happens that kind of forces her to settle down. She lives in a world where Greek mythology exists and is also known by the general populace. It's very rare, but it is known, and she kind of has a very dangerous destiny in store for her. It's really good. I gave this one a 3.5, 4 stars. It was better than the first one. I flew through it. Very addicting. Would recommend. Next up, I read the Perustopia book club pick of the month for the month of June, and that is Rebel of the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton, and this month we are working with Penguin Random House. This is the first book to a new YA fantasy series set in kind of a Persian desert, Wild West kind of fantasy setting. Our main character has grown up always wanting to leave her small desert town, and she is a sharpshooter, very good with the pistol, until one day a mysterious stranger comes into town and she uses that as an excuse to get away. This story has a very rich setting, and that was probably my favorite part of this story. Again, I have a full book review for this, which I will leave linked down below, but the setting was just so rich in its storytelling for such a small book that I just enjoyed reading along. And our main character, Amani, is just so spunky and hilarious that it's hard not to love her. But the reason why I appreciate her also as a character is that she's very flawed. She definitely makes mistakes, and she's definitely growing for those mistakes throughout the story, and ultimately, hopefully, is slowly becoming a better person because she's just so desperate to escape where she's come from that she's kind of willing to do anything to get there, and that kind of character trait is explored throughout this entire book, which I thought was really cool. Ultimately, I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I thought it was a great book for a new series, and I'm excited to see how it expands in the future. The next book I read was one of my most anticipated books like in a while, and it was a little disappointing, and that was The Grace Keepers by Christy Logan. This book is really odd. I'm gonna try to explain it the best I can, but basically it's set in a world where like water has overtaken a lot of the available land, making land even very scarce. And then there's 2 different types of people, land dwellers and then sea people who kind of exist on boats. They kind of both hate each other, they look down on each other. The land people, because they have land, they tend to be rich and they can grow food. They're a little more powerful. Our main character is a sea dweller, and she is actually on a circus boat. She's a circus performer with her bear. And that's kind of how we kind of start the story, that's how we follow her. However, this story is just so strange and like so I found myself to be so disconnected from the characters that while the writing was really beautiful and poetic and I found the setting to be very interesting, I never really got invested in any of the storylines, not even our main character. Ultimately, I honestly, about the halfway point, I was like about to give up. I just didn't really, I was just disappointed by this book because it didn't really strike me in any way, and I just felt like it had so much potential to be something eerie and beautiful and dark, and it was just kind of lackluster in that. I still recommend reading this if it sounds interesting to you and, you know, build your own opinions, but I thought it was okay. I ended up giving it a 2.5 out of 5 stars, which is probably one of my lowest ratings of the year, and I think that's coupled with the fact that was disappointed because I was expecting such good things, and the fact that honestly I was pretty bored throughout. Like it didn't really grab my attention in any way. Alrighty guys, those are all of the books I read in June. Please let me know down below some of your favorite books you've read recently, as I always love to know, and I will see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!